Donations tonight. Hen Dog and Miles, he says Desi gave the worst interview. It's one part he says some gay ass shit, and Shannon was like, "Bro, you should have never said that." Call Me Khan says talk about See the Thing Is, unless I missed it, bro. They're not doing the podcast no more, right? So that See the Thing Is podcast, bro. I keep telling you, all this cap and podcasting finna stop. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of these podcast niggas not making money, bro. That's just a fact. I'm not specifically talking about those people, but the cap in podcast is about to like have to come. Like, first of all, especially with Spotify, like I think I could even just be honest with y'all. Yo, I had meetings with all these motherfuckers before we went to Spotify. Like, Spotify and, well, there was Apple in my case, so because Spotify and Apple actually, they were going back and forth. They were offering the back. They offered the back. The rest of these other companies was not offering no back. And what I'm really trying to say when I say that is that the majority of like these podcast entities and like corporations, bro, there's no back there. You get what I mean? And that was when Spotify was dictating the market. So Spotify has left the market of wanting to sign podcasts. So I'm looking at all these podcasts now like, how the fuck are y'all getting paid, period? Blue Chew ain't finna keep paying y'all bills. You get what I mean? So I'll be like looking at it. So you're going to see there's going to be some reshuffling with podcasts. There's going to be a lot of consolidating. You're going to see podcasts go to what is working the most. Or, for example, I think the two ladies on See the Thing Is, one of them, not Bridget Kelly, the Mandy girl, she has another podcast. It's the Horrible Decision shit. Now, it ain't that popping numbers-wise like that online, but I think they do a live show, and from what I've heard from even other people, like they do a good live show. So, like, they do good on touring. So that's their business model to make money. Yeah, why do the other podcasts that's probably not making no money? Like, keep doing that. Everybody's pivoting now, bro. It's like, yo, like, shit. We did our deal with Spotify. We finished it. At this point, we're like, okay, cool. Off the Record is still one of our premier brands, but it falls under the Academy. We're trying to get the Academy. Like, obviously, I'm me, so I'm gonna do my thing regardless. But still, everything is like we're focused on pushing the Academy more than pushing just one particular podcast. I think podcasts are just in an interesting place where unless you have a really successful one right now, you're probably aiming to do a Cupid Shuffle, right? So it is what it is. Which, by the way, I think it's going to be interesting the next time Gillian Wallow become up for a new contract signing, because here's the thing too. Like, for example, I love my man Larry Jackson over or Apple. They helped me get the most out of the Spotify situation when it came to negotiation, because literally Apple was down to pay me a lot of money, and so it was a little competition a little bit. You need somebody in the market to be willing to pay or offer maybe even more than who you're with, to really that you could get like, you know, really fulfill value. I think when Gillian Wallow get out of their situation or they're up for renewal, I think you're going to see Dave Portnoy look around and say, well, if we don't give them whatever, where are they going to go? Right? Now, I do think they're important to Barstools, but I do think the market has changed. And if you haven't seen the podcast market chart change, you're not noticing business, all right? I think this is where you see places like, you know, Joe Budden's podcast that have just focused on consistency and building that type of hub of just fans that's always fucking with them. They're pretty much the number one like hip hop podcast. They're working out, but even then, didn't Joe start doing ads now? Like, Joe got Prize Picks on there. You get what I mean? So, hey, it is what it is. Yes, they re-signed with Barstools. I got to think that deal is probably like for 2 years, right? I can't imagine them getting a 3-year deal, especially everyone knew that there was going to be some changes. Yes, Call Her Daddy, Joe Rogan stays at Spotify, but Spotify's done signing people. It's over. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yo, hopefully y'all got y'all bread, but it's over, right? Someone said, do I think they stay with bar stools? Well, it depends on the deals, right? Like, for example, Spotify still, let me actually correct that. Spotify will offer deals, but they're not offering the deals they used to do. Like, they used to give you a deal to say, this is money guaranteed. Now they're on some shit like, oh, we'll serve ads and we'll give, like, it's just a very different deal that you now almost say, well, would I, like, and by the way, Spotify don't even want exclusivity no more, right? They already hit their margins and they fucking have their listenership for podcasts. They don't even want that. Like, that's why Joe Rogan show's about to come out. But that's what I'm saying, like, having a deal with Spotify at this point, unless you're like Joe Rogan or whatever, that's still like a primary like value pusher for the app. You might just want to be independent, right? Because now you could come to the table with multiple things. Think about Joe Budden. You know, if you do that deal with Spotify in their new terms of how they're signing people, they're just a broker for you, right? So they're brokering your shit. Right now, they're brokering it for Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan's Joe Rogan. So, for example, that Price Pick deal that motherfucking Joe got, that shit got to get broken down with Spotify if you get the new deal with Spotify, right? So they might be taking their little 30% or 35%, right? While now you operate independently, you go get that the whole deal for yourself. So again, you know, the podcast game has just changed, and I warn everybody. I think the streaming game is going to change in 2 years too. That's a fact. So again, you know, to be good in this industry and to be around for over 10 plus years, you better watch the ebbs and flows of this motherfucking, you know, business, because this all is a business. You get what I mean? And when it's hot, it's hot. And when it's, you know, it's time to change, it's not. You know what I mean? So, yeah, somebody say, if you where you could send me weed from a legit brand, I don't smoke, sir. I mean, you could send it like, I have employees that smoke. You can send it to my workplace. There's employees I have that smoke, but I don't smoke. Somebody said DraftKings just gave Barstools like $13 million a year. Yeah, they gave him that, but you got to realize that that's not gonna go into just like keeping. You got to realize Barstools is like complex at this point. Barstools just signed on with Rumble too. Barstools is like complex. Barstools isn't looking at maybe, you know, obviously, you know, Gillian Wild, they're still special because they're the hip hop component to a brand that's more synonymous with like white boy news and media type of stuff, right? So they kind of do need Gillian Wild a little bit. But hear what I'm trying to say. Them getting, say it's $30 million a year from Barstools, not Barstools, I mean DraftKings, it becomes a deal where they just need more shows on their network to service the ads to validate why they got 13 million. Do you get what I'm saying? So again, you know, of course they need a hit show here or there, but they become, I remember Complex, like they would get $5-8 million from Sprite, and nigga, they would put on any garbage show as long as they could put an ad on it, right? Like they don't give a fuck what it is. Like they'd be like, all right, let's get this nigga doing some weird shit, backflips and eating tacos. Okay, cool. We put some ads on it because you know what? They're taking on the money. So I guess I say that to say they're not using that 13 million to fucking throw to Gillian Wallow. Like it's just not, business wise, it doesn't work like that. Are they important? Yes, but I think they're also gonna realize that the atmosphere or the business has changed. I want to see how. Well, some companies were already operating under that different model. Like for example, I think like Black Effect probably isn't much change because they were never pushing exclusivity, right? That's the big thing that changed the podcast. Exclusivity is done. Somebody says, do you know how much money I would make with Rory Runts? Holy. What's that boy up to these days, man? You know, I think he had a kid. Ever since he tried to mention me one time, I told him, unless he want his fucking kid and baby mom up on the Summer Jam screen, chill the fuck out. I ain't hear nothing from him since. Rari VR, thank you, brother. He says, yo, Ak, when you streaming, bro, I always got tapping. I appreciate you. I'm actually surprised that it's like 3 a.m. and we still got a couple thousand people up in this bitch, right? Yeah, I will be back. I will be back on tomorrow early. I'm gonna try to hit I gotta hit like a midday stream or something like that. But I gotta figure out what we finna talk about because again, I don't even feel like we caught up with every topic, but I feel like there's nothing popping in. Like it's like nigga, we waiting for Boosie to say some wild or some shit. Like they locked up Blueface, so he can't beef with nobody. Really, we're kind of in a rut. Arch Nemesis, I see you, my boy Norman Osborne. I see you. Anyway, listen, chat. I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. Make sure you guys all join the Discord. We're trying to get it to 30,000.